Good morning and welcome to your special right triangles video. This is super exciting. You know who this cutie pie is here on this video, on this slide? That's Pythagoras. That's right, your main man did the Pythagorean theorem. Numbers rule the universe. So let's see here. What do you already know with right triangles? You know that when you have a large right triangle, and you have the altitude on the hypotenuse. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about this right here is the altitude on the hypotenuse. That x is a geometric mean. It's the geometric mean between the two parts of the hypotenuse. So remember, you put your geometric mean in each corner, x and x, and then it goes with 9 and 16, cross multiply, x squared is 144, root it, x is 12. So that's to find the altitude on the hypotenuse. What if your large triangle has an angle that's a right angle, your altitude is down on your hypotenuse? Do you remember if your altitude is a number, you start there, and that goes in both corners, 8 and 8. So that's the geometric mean between the two parts, 4 and x minus 4. Cross multiply. 4 times x minus 4 is 64. 4x minus 16 is 64. When I solve, x is 20. Plug it back in. X is 20. Okay, so now I need to find y. Well, y is a geometric mean between the piece closest to it, which is 20. So y goes in both corners. And the whole, which is 20 plus 20 minus 4, which is 16. So add them together, and you get 36. So it's between 20 and 36. Cross multiply. 720. Okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to see what's the perfect square that goes into 720. So I have 36, let's see, 36, 144 I would say. 720 divided by 144, 5. So it's y is the root of 144, root 5, which is 12 root 5. Oh my goodness. So you remember how to do that. Now let's go to the next slide. Do you remember it says how long is the zip line from the top of the fort to the shoreline? Well, you would use the Pythagorean theorem. This is your hypotenuse. So it'd be 20 squared plus 50 squared equals x squared. So 2500 plus 400 is x squared. So you would solve, you get 10 root 29. So these, what have I been doing? Finding the sides of a right triangle. So now, what I'm going to do is next slide, and I want you to see, okay? We've come from geometric mean problems that utilize similar triangles to Pythagorean theorem problems that let us find one side of a right triangle if two were known. So let's look, there's special right triangles. How am I going to find a side if only one measure is known? Well, let's look at the isosceles right triangle, okay? When I look at the isosceles right triangle, I see that two sides are equal. So, there's a leg. Oh, why are you moving? Sorry. So there's a leg here and a leg here. And then we also know we have the hypotenuse here. So, if I were to make the leg x, then this leg would be x. How would I find the hypotenuse? What you would do is to go from the leg to the hypotenuse, you would take the leg and multiply by root 2. That's the rule. They did the Pythagorean theorem a gazillion times and figured it out. So here I know that my hypotenuse would be x times root 2. Now how do I go backwards? How do I go from my hypotenuse to my leg? Well, you would take your hypotenuse and you would divide by root 2, right? Because you're going backwards. So that's the rule if you have a 45, 45, 90 right triangle. It's an isosceles right triangle. So when I look here, I notice which are my two legs, here and here. So they're equal. So what is A? A is 14. Now I look, I need to find my hypotenuse. So if you look at your rule says that to go from leg to hypotenuse is the leg times root 2. Voila! Let's go to the next one. You notice your legs are equal here. If one leg is 5 root 6, then A, the other leg, is 5 root 6. Now, how do I go from leg to hypotenuse? Well, you have to take that 5 root 6. Oh, I must have hit something new. Sorry. And multiply by root 2. So that will give me 5 root 12. But then I have to break that down. I am not digging this. I'm sorry. Then I have to break that down. I have to do 5 root 4 root 3, which is 5 times 2, which is 10 root 3. So actually your C is 10 root 3. Here are your answers. Let's look at the third example. You're given the hypotenuse and you need your legs that are equal, so you need to go backwards. So you're going to take that 16 and you're going to, the rule says, to go from hypotenuse to leg, you divide by root 2. So you're going to divide by root 2. Can't have radical in the denominator. Need to multiply the top and bottom by root 2. 16 root 2 over root 4, which is 2. You can cancel these, which gives you 8 root 2 for each leg. I have no room to write there, but each leg is 8 root 2. So, 45, 45, 90. The rules are the two sides are the same, the two legs. And to get to the hypotenuse, you multiply root 2. To go backwards, you divide by root 2. Now it's going to get a little tricky. We're going to talk about 30, 60, 90 triangles. Let's look at the equilateral triangle. Do you see it here? We know that every side's equal, right? Which would make it 60 degrees, 60 degrees, 60 degrees. I drew the altitude on to the down, and it's perpendicular to the base. And now I'm just going to look at one triangle. I'm going to look at the 30, 60, 90 triangle. There are two legs in a 30, 60, 90. One of them is going to be a short leg, and it's always opposite the 30. And we're going to call the other one the long leg. It's opposite the 60. So this is going to be the long leg. And then, of course, we have our cute hypotenuse, which is, you can't see the green probably, sorry, which is opposite the 90 degrees. So the short leg is the most important, okay? He's the big kahuna here. If you can find the short leg, you can go to any other side. So let's talk about it. I want to go short leg to hypotenuse. All right, so if my short leg is X, I want to find the hypotenuse. What am I going to do? I am going to take that short leg and I am going to multiply it by 2. So I am going to take the short leg and times it by 2. Voila. So the hypotenuse is 2 times your X. Now let's look at our hypotenuse back to the short leg. What am I going to do? You're going to take your hypotenuse and you're going to divide by what number? 2. Okay? Piece of cake. You multiply by 2, divide by 2. Now let's talk about the short leg to the long leg. To go from the short leg to the long leg, I'm going to take my short leg and I'm going to multiply by root 3. Okay? 45, 45, 90 has two sides equal. It uses root 2. 30, 60, 90 has multiples of 3. It uses root 3. So whatever x is, to get my long leg, I would say I'm going to take the x and times it by root 3. All right? So how do I go backwards? How do I go from my long leg back to my short leg? You're going to take your long leg and you're going to divide by root 3. There are the rules. So let's try some examples. In my first example, you notice I've highlighted 4. 4 is opposite from the 30. What's that make 4? The long leg. Let's find the hypotenuse, okay? I take the short leg. Did I say long leg? Scratch that. So let's take the short leg. To get the hypotenuse here, I would multiply by 2. My hypotenuse is 8. Go back to your short leg. It's the most important. To go from short leg to long leg, you multiply by root 3. There's your long leg. Let's go to our middle problem. The short leg is highlighted. It's A. You're given the hypotenuse. To go from short leg to hypotenuse, you multiply by 2. So how do I go backwards to get the short leg? I would divide by 2. So hypotenuse 6 root 3 divided by 2 is 3 root 3. How do I get my long? You go from the short, because that's the most important. You take 3 root 3 and you multiply by root 3. So it's 3 root 9, which is 3 times 3, which is 9. So my long is 9. Oopsies. Let's go to our third one. Short leg, our big kahuna. Most important, I don't have it, but I need to find it. If you look, you're given your long leg. Let's remember our rules. To go from short to long, we multiply by root 3. So to go backwards, I'm going to have to divide by root 3. 12 divided by root 3. Can I have a square root in the denominator? No, I can't. So I have to rationalize 12 root 3. Root 3 times root 3 is root 9, which is 3. These cancel, and your answer is 4 root 3. So my short is 4 root 3. Now, go from short to hypotenuse, you multiply by 2. You only multiply the number that is outside the radical by 2. So my hypotenuse is 8 root 3. Take a moment to check that out. So let's look. These are our rules. Hopefully they make sense to you. The two legs are equal in a 45, 45, 90. Okay? You also have the two legs here are equal. You also, to get the hypotenuse, you multiply by root 2. To get the hypotenuse, it's the leg times root 2. To get the leg, it's the hypotenuse divided by root 2. That's going backwards. In the 30, 60, 90 is different. The short is the most important. So, to get the hypotenuse, you would multiply by 2. To go backwards, you would divide by 2. So the hypotenuse is 2 times the short, or the short is the hypotenuse divided by 2. To get the long leg from the short, you would do the short times root 3. Get the long leg is short times root 3. To go backwards to get the short, you would take the long and divide by root 3. Okay? So I hope this helped you understand the 30, 60, 90, and 45, 45, 90 rules. My suggestion is to write the rules down on a sheet of paper where you will find it. Or on your index card if there's room, with the Pythagorean theorem, altitude on the hypotenuse, okay? All the right triangle things. All right. Now, I'm going to explain what you're going to do, because this PowerPoint's a little different than the notes I gave you, okay? Have a good day. Happy Friday!